Okay, folks, here we go.
Guys, here we go. Let's have a good show.
One B, stand by. Okay,
Yeah.
Yacht, stand.
Yeah,
Take it.
take it at midfield.
Okay,
Just go
take
right
it.
now.
Okay.
Go to camera 3. 3. Go to the gate. Perfect. Just like that.
I'll just go ahead.
Yeah, graphics 2 is going to be up for the first.
Okay.
Go right now. Go to camera 3. Go. Yep. Go to the gate. Perfect. Just like that. No music.
I'm going to hand to Q, Sophie.
Wait for it. Wait for it. Wait for it.
On radio in the Canal Zone.
All right, guys, mic check.
Yep, go ready.
Okay, Ricky, mic.
Yep, I am ready.
Wait for it. Wait for it. 2.5.
Willie, mic check.
Yep, let's go.
1B, stand by.
10, 9, 8, 7, 6,
5,
4, 3, 2, 1, and
Okay, and go for it.
Lo va a pitar aquí. ¡Que lo pita el árbitro! ¡Ricardo Mundialista! ¡Pita el árbitro! ¡Sacó el portero, Ricardo! Loud, so I had to turn that off because Lord have mercy, it's gonna blow away some of these speakers. But that was 3 weeks ago. Panama winning qualification of the World Cup, but nonetheless, I'll have to update that later. Today is Friday, the first Friday of the month. It is 8 p.m. Eastern time. Out west there, Ricky, it's 5 p.m. your neck of the woods, and it's 8 p.m. down in the zone. We are in the Balboa Yacht Club. Happy hour at the Balboa Yacht Club. Ricky, happy Friday, man.
Happy Friday to all you guys. And like Willie said, it's soccer time. Even though it's been 3 weeks, the excitement's still in the air.
Indeed.
And we've got an incredible show for you guys today. Listen, guys, everybody, welcome to our show. This is SCN Canal Zone Happy Hour at the Balboa Yacht Club. As you know, it's a weekly podcast and it's all about the Panama Canal. Its history, which tonight we'll be covering a whole bunch of it, its towns, its traditions, and more importantly, its people, a.k.a. Zonians, or like the Shorty and Slim group likes to call us, Mango Heads.
Mango Heads
Welcome,
indeed.
everybody, and let's prepare our drinks. Let's have a toast for all you Zonians out there and all you
Yes,
viewers
indeed.
and friends.
Salute, everybody.
Let's get this show started, and here's to the 8th wonder of the world.
Yes, indeed, absolutely. And Chris Jeffries in Kentucky, absolutely. Happy
Hey,
Friday
Mr.
to you
Chris.
as well.
Happy
Exciting
Friday.
Texit Coin news, guys. There's gift cards available for Texit Coin now. So if that's not something you want to do, but maybe somebody else that would maybe want to invest in their future, throw a gift card their way and get them into some Texit Coin crypto. There.
Very
But,
important sponsor of the show. Thank you very much, Texas.
Yeah. So, but again, it's the first Friday of the month, which again is our Dave Dahlstrom. Dave Dahlstrom has, he's been like a guest that is like, sir, the show's over, but he's, come back in next week, and he's still there again. It's like, holy shit, look at this guy. But no, it's just scheduling has brought him in 3 times in a row now, in not in a row, but close enough to it. But each time some great shows, and tonight's show is going to be there's some really intriguing stuff here on some things that Ricky and I have talked about previously regarding the behind the scenes before
all the players.
holiday before the big show, I guess, right? You could call it. So I'm excited about that, Ricky. It's going to be a good show tonight. I'm definitely excited there for that.
Yeah, I know how excited you are, Willie. You're so excited. What are you mostly excited about, Willie? I think soccer, maybe more than that.
I think you might be onto something there. There was
What
a little
is it,
thing.
Willie? I know you've been chopping at the what is that saying go?
Chomping at the bit.
Chopping at the bit to tell us about, because it's a big day in soccer, guys.
100%. Today was the World Cup draw. Okay, that's the World Cup is an event. The World Cup is a 2-year plus event. Okay, honest to God, it really is. It's what we watch that we, growing up in Panama, El Mundial and all that kind of stuff. That's really called the World Cup finals. Okay, because it is really the finals. The tournament starts 2 years before with all kinds of qualifying, and teams go through a lot to finally get to the point of representing their country and their confederations. And Panama was the only country in Central America to qualify for the World Cup, which is pretty amazing because there are some pretty good teams in
Costa Rica, you know, it's
Costa
always,
Rica's
traditionally
been
it's always in there.
Yeah, absolutely. Honduras has always been a tough opponent, a big rival of theirs. El Salvador as well, but
Guatemala now.
yeah, man, absolutely. So Panama made it through, qualified for the World Cup, and then today was the drawing for the World Cup. And so what you see on the screen there is the actual groups. There's 48 teams this year. It's the largest World Cup group they've had. They've expanded it to 48 teams now. So you've got 12 groups of 4. And as you can see, there's a couple of them where you see a bunch of words. It's a little hard to see on the screen. It's hard to put all those names in there. But qualifying's not over yet. They're not going to finish until March. There's still some spots available that some of those teams that you see on the screen there in those names will end up taking those spots there. But as you can see, the majority of them are filled up, and all the way to the right, Group L for last, not L for loser, hopefully, but L for last. You see Panama there. Now,
I think L for loser. Look at that
well,
group.
you see now. Okay, so Ricky, ever the pessimist here, is trying to be realistic. I get it. So in the World Cup, in World Cup soccer, there's always been those groups they call the groups of death, right? The groups of death. Is that group. Now, group of death is for different reasons. Sometimes it's because you have, 3 or 4 really, really strong teams. This World Cup, for example, the drawing was a little bit different. Because you had so many teams, they were concerned with having a unbalanced finals and semifinals and whatnot, where you had all the good teams on one side and a bunch of weak teams on the other side. Because you've added 12 more teams. That's a big expansion. And so what they did was they took the top 12 teams in the world. And really, technically, it's the top 9 teams because the World Cup's being hosted by 3 countries this time. It's United States, Canada, and Mexico. So they're automatic qualifiers. Therefore, they got into that pot 1 or that top ranking group of teams. So these teams can't face each other. So you don't have those traditional first round games where a Brazil and Germany might face each other, a England, Spain and
Argentina.
And correct. And so they're all in separate groups. And then pot 2 is now your still your good quality teams, but they're just not at that top 12 level. And especially this year, again, having 3 teams there, you really are looking at the top 9 teams, because I don't think anybody can argue that USA, Canada, or Mexico is one of the top 12 teams in the world. They're not. Okay, let's not kid ourselves. But they're hosting it, and so therefore they automatically get one of those top berths. So pot 2 has some good teams in it and some decent teams. Pot 3 was where Panama was, and it doesn't show it on here because they're lined up differently here. They had to adjust some teams here, but Panama was in that pot 3, and then ultimately pot 4 was your really low qualifiers, and it was a lot of the teams, all the teams that you see the words up there, even though you see some of them are in pot 2, they were actually all pot 4 teams because they had to get in on a, whatever you want to call it, a sudden death qualifier, because they weren't good enough to qualify in their initial rounds. So you can't call them one of the top, 30 or 40 teams. Okay, so with all that being said, as the draw started to come out, we knew the first picks were there, some strong teams other than Mexico, Canada, and the U.S., but per rules, Panama couldn't face those guys in the first round. They couldn't be in that same group. So that reduced Panama's options to 9 other teams out there. And of the 9 teams there, Belgium looked like the best option, in my opinion, just from, knowing what I know about soccer. And they've got a lot of very old players on that team. These guys were good at several World Cups ago. But nonetheless, Belgium got Egypt in their group, and then they got Iran in their group, and things were looking really good for Panama. And because of some quirky rules of other teams not being allowed to be in the same conference as others, they kept getting pushed back. And so finally they ended up in a group that had England, Croatia, and Ghana. And I went ahead and looked up, based on the current rankings, world rankings, which were just released last week. So they are fresh, they are up-to-date rankings, which Panama's number 30, by the way, in the world. Okay, not 30 in these 48 teams, but 30th in the world. So they have a very strong team. But when you take all the groups A through L and you take all of their rankings, the group of death, the toughest group, was Group L. So there's two ways of looking at that. Again, a group of death could mean a group where you're going to get clobbered, right? A group of death could be a group that has Spain and Argentina. And so therefore, if you're Tunisia and you're some other country, you're going to get clobbered by those two. That could be a group of death. The other group of death is a group that, every game is going to be tough. You're not going to have that easy game. You're not going to have that walkover game. And I'm leaning more towards that. Okay. Honestly, Panama has a lot of experience on their team. They have a lot of cup experience now. These guys have been around for a bit. They've been in a previous World Cup. Not a lot of them, but they've been in a lot of cup competitions, and they've gone far in these competitions. They have a lot of players playing overseas that are getting a lot of experience as well. And when you look at, other than England, of course, England, without a doubt, is definitely one of the top 12 teams in the world. They're probably one of the top 5 or 6 teams in the world. So we know that one is a very, very tough game. A draw would be an extremely positive result for Panama. But Croatia, they have a great record in recent World Cups and recent European Championships. But a lot of those players have retired in the last year or two. And some of the ones that are still there, they have a guy by the name of Luka Modric he's been around forever. Okay, he has
third or fourth World Cup.
It is, and they've won the World Cup. I mean, these guys have that winning pedigree. But this guy he's in his 40s. He has 194 caps, 94 appearances for the national team, and so. They're an old
Bernie
team.
Kosar of soccer.
Yes, that's a great analogy for those that who Bernie Kosar is, who by the way is recovering from cancer surgery. I just saw the other day.
Oh, good for him. Good quarterback.
But they're teams that haven't these guys are long in the tooth, man. Okay, and the guys that are replacing them don't have a lot of experience, so they're not really the Croatia that you're used to seeing out there.
Good.
It makes a big difference.
All right,
Ghana's
2-1. I got 2-1 Panama on that one.
Honestly, that would not be a surprise. I think it would a draw would be a good option there for Panama. I think Panama's best chance of winning their first World Cup match would be against Ghana. Ghana's they're a good defensive team, but Panama can score some goals. Okay,
Ghana's smallest guy's like 6'4".
They are, but here's the thing about Ghana. They get a lot of yellow cards. They're a very undisciplined team.
Yes, you're right.
And Ricky and I were talking about this earlier today during show prep. Back about 3 years ago or so, maybe a little longer, the U.S. and Panama were playing in a game. And what's his name? Pulisic for United States, who's a thorn in Panama's side. They went after him. It was to the point that even though I was rooting for Panama, I felt really, really sorry for the guy because they just kicked the shit out of this guy. It was bad. Panama has a mean side to them that if it gets you the right way, you can take a team out of their game. And Ghana is, again, when you look at a team that has that many yellow cards, they're very undisciplined. All right, that's
good point.
That's like in football, the team that keeps getting all the yellow flags, man. You know that you can get that team to jump off sides. You know you can get them to retaliate.
Retaliate, yeah.
Yes, yeah. And so I can see the United States or Panama getting one on Ghana and maybe winning that game. Again, England I think is for sure going to win the group, but it's going to be interesting. There's still a lot more to come. Those teams that still haven't been determined, those games are going to take place in March. So it's going to be actually a very cool tournament in Mexico. It's going to be a knockout bracket with a couple of teams that have some buys. And so it should be fun to watch. If anything, great time to pay attention and learn about what some of the teams are going to be doing. Now what you're going to see Panama do over the next 6 months on the few times that they get those international breaks is they'll be scheduling friendlies with some of their competitors. I saw the United States already scheduled a friendly with Portugal, and I
heard Panama's going to play European teams to get ready for.
Well, what they'll do is they're going to play people that play similar to England. They're going to play somebody that plays similar to Croatia, and same thing with Ghana. You want to face similar opponents in essence a scrimmage, right? Mm-hmm. So it's going to be fun to watch. On our Zonians going to the World Cup, we'll stay tuned with all of these things. We're going to do a weekly recap of what's going on, start talking about the different Panama players out there. There's a player out there that Ricky and I are really, really watching and fingers crossed that he plays for Panama in the World Cup. A guy by the name of Kadir, who's plying his trade in Brazil. And Ricky will tell you, man, this guy's a beast, man.
He's really good, man. He's already played 2 games at the top level, and he's already scored 3 goals in 2 games.
Yeah,
and he's now the star of the team, el protagonista.
Yes. Exactly, he is absolutely. He's when you look at that, it's when they announced that team. Remember back in the day when the Bulls were in their reign, it was always Michael Jordan and the Chicago Bulls, right? That was the way they was always introduced. That's what this guy's looking at. He's becoming that person. He's from Panama. He's a great player. Brazil wants to get him to switch alliances exactly and go and play for Brazil because of that quality.
How good he is.
And I mean, European guys are sniffing him out in the club side, and
well,
they're talking.
He's the highest contract. Oh, I don't know how you guys say it in soccer, but if another team wants to take him,
he's got the highest valuation. They call it.
Yeah, $57 million.
That's what it'll take right now just to talk to him.
$57 million.
That's what it's going to take to talk to this
Brock
guy.
Purdy money.
Yeah. I mean, that's honestly that's exactly right. That's what it's going to take for to open negotiations. In club soccer, you buy and sell players. You buy and sell their contracts, right? And so you negotiate with the team for a fee, but then you also got to negotiate with the player and make sure that you agree to a salary with him. And at that point, then everything takes place. But this guy's, I mean,
I see. So just to talk to him is $57 million.
And that's why, when people are coming into contracts, typically it's once you're getting to your last year of your contract, you now have all the power. Because if this guy's worth $57 million, let's assume he's worth $57 million, right? And he's got 3 years left on his contract. Well, if he gets down to where he's got 1 year left on his contract, where he can wait out the season and become a free agent, he can go talk to one of these clubs and go, hey, that 57 you're going to pay them? You pay me a $30 million bonus, and I'll sign with you as a free agent. So,
I see.
So at the 2-year mark is when, a team will have to take a look and go, hey, especially the smaller teams, right, that know that when somebody comes in with an offer that big, you can't say no. That Brazilian squad, $57 million will buy 30 players on that team, okay? So they don't say no to that. And everybody knows that, and that's when people start moving around. They look at when his contract's up. It's in 2 years. Now's the time to talk to him. Next year, it'll be too late.
Got it. Understood. Well, let's keep an eye on him.
Yeah.
He is. There's also one that plays for the Argentinian league, but he's not as popular as Kadir. But he's also a striker for Bocas Jr., and he's won games for them. And
well, that's a big club.
very
Listen,
loved.
Boca Juniors is a big club in Argentina.
yeah.
There's 2 big clubs down there, and that's one of them. So it's that's certainly someone to look out for. So
those 2 young kids can really make a difference. They might even surprise England if they play England on the opener. I actually people are asking me, Rick, what is your guess for that? I'm like 2-1 Panama if it's the opener.
Well,
with Kadir scoring both. So
and England right now, for what it's worth, in the Premier League, it's one of the more competitive seasons they've had in a long time. In other words, there's not that one team running away with it. And so if that continues on, these guys are going to be busting their asses all the way through to late May and June. You may have some injuries and some people that aren't at 100% when they go into that first game, and that's a shot at knocking somebody off. Panama winning the group, slim to none. I wouldn't put any money on that. But coming away with a
one win, one tie.
Last year, Argentina was dominant. I mean, there was no doubt they were going to win the World Cup, and they did win the World Cup, but they lost that first game to Saudi Arabia. Nobody in their wildest dreams expected that to happen.
That's right. So we never know. Let's keep our fingers crossed, man.
Yeah,
right on. And Willie, how's the U.S. team? Tell us about the U.S. team. So
the U.S., it's always a challenge when you're hosting the World Cup because you don't play competitive games. Mm-hmm. And that matters, right? There's something about when you're playing a game that doesn't matter. Sometimes you don't put that 100%. It's not the same environment. A lot of times the host nations end up doing poorly simply because they were never challenged. Right? The U.S., Canada, and Mexico right now, in all honesty, U.S. of those 3 is the best of the 3. No doubt about it. Mexico is probably the worst Mexican side that I've seen in honestly, probably 30 years. They really are just a really, really poor side. Canada's up and down. They've never been anybody that you you worry about, but you kind of respect them, right? They're just one of those teams that hangs around. So, but I think the U.S. has a good shot. Their group is it's a mid group, honestly. I know at one point
I was making fun of my friends about that
let
group.
me tell you what, man. Ricky jumped in and he's like, the fix is on, the rig is down. I said, what are you talking about? He goes, this group is a walk in the park. And let me show you the rankings. And they were right smack in the middle. They were number 7 of 12 of the groups.
Yeah.
So, it's Paraguay is one of those teams. They're up and down. It's hard to judge Paraguay. Paraguay is like Bolivia. They're one of those teams. Bolivia is a team, honestly. Here's what's interesting about Bolivia. When you watch qualifying in South America, Argentina goes to Bolivia and plays there. Brazil goes to Bolivia and play there. And they lose like 5-2.
Oh, because of the altitude.
Yes. I mean, it's ridiculous. They're playing at 7,000 feet up.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And these guys their blood is like molasses.
Yeah.
you know?
It's like Big Bear high school football. They never lose at home.
Exactly. And Paraguay is kind of one of those teams that, they may have done well in qualifying, so you think they've got a good rating, but all of a sudden they get down to sea level, and it's just a whole different story for them. So,
got you.
Australia, though, is a good team. They're a good club.
Yeah, I saw they were plot 2, so that's a pretty good team.
They're a strong team. They have been for a while there, and then the last piece there is the unknown, which is that fourth team there, and I can't see off the top of my head there.
Turkey, Romania, Slovakia, and
Correct.
Kosovo. One of those 4.
So Turkey and Slovakia are 2 teams that could prove to be troublesome. They have some good teams there. They're not bad. You say, well, they didn't qualify, to get in. That's why they're in this playoff round. But you're talking about playing in Europe, where
right? Look, Denmark didn't qualify.
Correct.
Ireland.
There's only so many
Czech,
spots, right?
Yeah, Bosnia, Wales. I mean, there's a lot of.
It's like the
European
SEC
spots.
in college football. There's only 2 spots there, but you got a whole bunch of quality teams, and just because they didn't win it all, you can't say they're not a good team. So you could have a team there that suddenly gives United States trouble. Australia, maybe you could see a draw with Australia, and so United States is not a shoo-in to win the group. They have to work to win it, but I think they should, as long as they play solid. They just beat Uruguay 5-2 the other day, so that's got to be worth something. But we'll see. Prior to that, they were doing really bad under Pochettino, and people were calling for him to get fired. So depending on which team comes out, we'll see what happens. But they've got some good games. That game against Portugal should probably be a good indicator of where they're at. Right, that's another World Cup team. You got Ronaldo and a lot of other good quality European players on that squad. So that's a good indicator of a good barometer of where you'll see United States for the World Cup. So we'll see, man.
All right, cool. Yeah, we'll see. Well, one thing I noticed today, Trump was at the what do you call that event?
At the World Cup draw.
At the draw event. And they asked him, hey, who do you like? And he goes, the U.S., of course. But then he goes, I also like Panama. And people say, you like Panama? He goes, I like the Canal, right? So that was kind of cool. But then he goes, Dave, right before he walks out, he goes, hey, by the way, we got a good trade deal. And I thought, oh, really? We got a good, okay, well, let's inform our viewers what those trade deals
do tell.
That we have with the U.S.
Speaking of Panama and the U.S., right?
It's truly 2 trade deals that we have with the U.S., but nobody else in the world has.
Okay.
All right, guys. So this whole segment on U.S. trade, Trump and Panama starts out with 10 legislators from Panama get invited to Taiwan. I mean, out of the blue.
Yes.
And this has caused tremendous, fireworks because China, it's really upset about this.
Well, that was a big deal in 2016 when Taiwan and China switched sides.
Yeah, well, Taiwan gave Panama $70 million, and then 2017 they broke ties.
Yes.
So, but anyways, Taiwan puts this together, brings these 10 legislators out there just to get the noise started. But so we find out that those legislators are there because Taiwan wants to open a commercial office in Panama. Okay. Now, they've always had one, Willie. They always had one before, but then they went away. They want to open up another one. There's a reason for it, based on some of the research we've done. Is the key word, semiconductors. All right? Now, this is where the 2 trade deals that Trump is mentioned. First one is actually from 2023, guys, and it's the U.S.-Panama Collaboration Agreement. Yes. All right? And that one is under the Chip and Science Act.
Yeah.
And what it is, and it's actually funded by the International and Innovation Fund, ITSI Fund, that's what it's called.
No, that's right.
And and what this agreement is to integrate Panama into the global semiconductor supply chain. So why Panama, right? Why? First of all, because we're the greatest allies of the United States. We grew up together as countries. Second, because of Howard. Howard is the key word of why the United States is turning Panama into a semiconductor supply country, part of the supply chain. So this brings us to what this new collaboration agreement of 2013, what it costs Panama. All right, so it's one thing to say, yes, we're going to collaborate with Panama, but what has it cost Panama to do, Willie? First, between the China and the U.S. fighting for Panama's love, right? Because they're both fighting quite hard for them. Is Panama, with this new agreement, has to collaborate first because they have to produce the labor force to be able to get involved with the semiconductor, right? So Panama has collaborated now with two stateside universities, Arizona State University and Purdue, and they have campuses in Panama, and they're producing.
Sure.
I mean, they're pumping out tech.
Well, and you remember that recent semiconductor deal that the U.S. did with NVIDIA, I believe, was in Arizona, right near that campus, in that same area. So I mean, there is definitely a connection there, and that airport that Ricky mentioned, guys, that is when you think of the infrastructure that it takes to build an airport, okay, it is one of your more expensive entities when it comes to world trade, is having a big infrastructure of an airport. And they've got a fantastic one and very underutilized.
Extra long, too.
Yes. There's a lot of heavy equipment flying in and out of there with the U.S. Air Force. So it's, Mac from Howler Monkey Sauce will tell you about that when he watched them on there.
Yeah.
But it's so that's a big deal.
That's a huge deal, especially the type of work and jobs that are coming. Now, Panama has their own technical university called UTP, Universidad Tecnológica de Panama. Correct. And they're actually ranked in the Latin America as one of the top technical schools. So this new trade agreement has already brought two universities to Panama, but it's pumping out tech kids out of Panama to fill these jobs that are starting to form. And you know what, Willie, about a year ago, we talked about a Zonian family that his daughter was down there with their tech company looking at places to establish themselves down there. And this is what this is all about, this trade agreement. Yeah. The second big trade agreement, and this is the big one that Panama has with the United States, is called TPA. And guys, what that is a trade agreement where it's called Trade Promotion Agreement. And what it is like a duty-free agreement, where 87% of what is traded between the United States and Panama, free, no taxes, no tariffs, duty-free. Only 13% gets taxed at 10%, the lowest. Now, so this has caused a lot of good things to happen. Through the TPA, part of it is also agriculture. We have a trade agreement with Panama for agriculture, Willie. And why is this important? Because between the two countries, they're ensuring sanitary standards known as PS. In other words, the top standards that the United States use. Panama also has the same. So what does this cost? This costs Panama to join Mercosur, which is something we've been talking a lot about. And this is why we're now pushing for new ports in Chiriquí and new trains from where? From Howard, Rodman actually, but they have a stop in Howard, all the way to Chiriquí.
Sure.
And to the Costa Rican border.
And a big station in the middle there in Anton, which is the big logistics. Yeah, 100%.
Because this is what Panama and the United States have agreed to. And this is why Mercosur, Argentina, Brazil, and I think Paraguay, they're sending all their beef over to us.
Yep.
We process and ship it to the U.S.
Yeah.
market.
And Panama for years has had a with the free zone, they've had they've been considered. I forget what the term was, but a World Trade Center, and that was more than just a term because they did a lot of trade. That was an official term that gave certain benefits, and one of them was involving tariffs and taxes. That it was cheaper to do business through Panama as the intermediary to South America and the United States by using that World Trade Center status and transiting it all through there. And I think in this is kind of what Ricky's alluding to here, that the entire country is now becoming the logistics center for the Americas, right?
For the United States, more
for the
than
whole
anything.
Americas, from
Yeah,
the
the
United
whole
States
Americas,
to
but-
Panama, to South America, to the
Yeah.
Caribbean, to Asia on the ships, to Europe on the ships. It really is the place where you can put a lot of things on and very cheaply move it all the way around the world through Panama. And that's
Panama, yes, sir. So right on Panama. And last but not least on this, Panama is helping U.S. farmers at a small scale, but we are buying U.S. soybeans.
right on.
A company called Extractora del Baru is buying a
Okay.
whole ton of them and converting it into fuel.
Perfect.
Yes, guys. So that's what we got going on here with our little bochinche. Oh, we got one little one for you people that like to go to the beach. We have a little beach update. The Panamanian government has given the green light to expand the Corredor de las Playas. Basically, it's the same highway we were using, but they're going to convert it from when we were there it was 2-lane. Then it went to 4-lane. Now it's going to go up to 6 lanes. Starting on this side of Campana Hill, going through Campana Hill in a tunnel. We're not going to go over and above like we
Wow.
did before. We're going to go through a tunnel through Campana, and then on the other side, where it's going to end up in a place called Saralices. Starting at a place called Espino, all the way to Saralices. It's 20 kilometers. So basically, you're going to get from Panama City to Coronado 20 minutes, 30 minutes max.
Yeah.
And it will be going right in front of that Autódromo too. So I think a lot of it has to do with making that auto. One of the things that we all talked about is we want to get F1 in Panama. But one of the things we found out is that the Autódromo to an airport is too far. We don't have the proper roads.
Correct.
So I think this has a lot to do with that.
I mean, you got to
as
look
well.
at it. F1 is like a Super Bowl. It's like, I mean, it's a
Yeah.
huge event. You're not going in there with people on lawn chairs.
Yeah,
it's-
no. But Panama's starting to build up to be
But
a
there's
F1
an interesting
type
video.
place.
When you talk F1, there's a really, really fascinating video on the logistics of F1. And it really is, you take, for example, like Monaco, right? It's in the middle of this very prestigious city. But there's no room for anything there, and they transform that whole little section there into the paddocks where the garages and everything is. It's really incredible what they do, but it requires a certain level of infrastructure and proximity to ports and airports so that you can get these things set up because they're on time crunches. It's not like they've got 400 sets of that equipment to go everywhere. So to Ricky's point, when they get the rest of that in place and build that thing up, now that's racing on the Panama Canal would be, again, with F1 being that international sport, the
And
Panama
all the
Canal
groups
certainly
below it, too.
is one of those crown jewels to put in there for sure, man. That's so.
Yeah. Well, I do have one last Gamboa news, Willie. And I did say I was going to make it short. Sorry. But this was important. Gamboa, guys. Panama just sold McGrath Field for $5.7 million, a total of 3.9 hectares, to Senan. That's like the special forces of Panama.
Oh,
So
interesting.
they're going to turn Gamboa into a little bit of a military base. But, we know that U.S. Special Forces trains with them. So more than likely, that's going to be their base.
Well, and Gamboa is always one of those places that's not very accessible, right? You always had that one road in, one road out.
And you
so-
have plenty of available houses
Yeah.
there.
So it makes sense to do that.
A ton
there.
of available houses
Yeah,
there.
Totally makes sense.
Right. And
Smart
total, right in the middle of the canal,
Mm-hmm.
Smithsonian, Chagres.
Chagres. I mean, you got everything there. It really is an
Everything's
ideal
right
spot.
there.
And you
Yeah.
got and coincidentally, there's a penitentiary across the river.
and Fuentes or penitentiary.
You know, so
And the good thing is, hopefully, they'll have like a bush patrol to take care of the crocodile problem.
yeah,
that
we talked
having-
about that last week. That's
last
true,
week
man.
they were having in
Yeah,
Panama
that's
because you
funny.
can't swim in Gatun Lake anymore.
Anywhere in Panama, God, you see those things I mean, Rio Bajo, man, there's crocs out there coming out of the rivers and stuff now, and the ditches and everything, man. That's a mess. The whole croc came in.
It's a mess. And listen, they're
It's a
getting so
mess,
bad,
man.
Willie. There was one a couple of weeks ago that swam out to Taboga.
Yes, and it wasn't no tiny little thing either, man. That thing was a good 12-footer or something, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was
Yeah.
huge, you know.
Wow.
Swam out to Taboga. So anyway, guys, that's it.
Well,
Gamboa's going to turn into a
you
little,
know,
the field out there by the pool. They're going to turn it into a little base. But listen, the people are a bit upset about it. They don't want to, the residents don't want military base. But the Senan said, because U.S. is going to be there,
Right.
that they're going to share their space. I don't know how they're going to share a base, but they're saying they're going to share their space, maybe like the pool and stuff like that.
Oh, they'll figure it out.
Yeah, they're going to have community programs there and a higher maintenance of roads and public areas. So Gamboa's due for a
upgrade for
new
the Gamboa,
influx of people.
Little upgrade.
Yeah, some more new residents. Because I've seen the pictures. They're, it looks 80% empty.
Yeah, no doubt.
I mean, it feels, maybe it's not 80, but that's what it feels like. So yeah, that's what we have, guys. Gamboa.
Very good. Cool. Well, listen, let's say hello to some people before we move on, because we've got,
we've been 35 minutes without saying hello.
But
Willie and I, we start the month all excited.
we do.
We've got a
It's fun.
great
There's always
show.
things going
Right on,
on.
Chris.
Things to talk about. So yeah, Chris is in Cincinnati today, so he's home this time. Leaf's in Panama again. Welcome.
Hey,
Good to hear
Leafy.
from you, Leaf. Absolutely, Jim. I
Hey,
I
Mr.
haven't
Bradley.
received it, but I'm glad you mentioned that again, because Vern, who's on here as well, has been talking to a gentleman that he's putting me in touch with, that from the Army did security for the Sturgis. So I think we have a really good conversation to have there with that. I'd love to have you on to talk about that. That's a fascinating story. In fact, you can see my dad chimed in just a moment ago here, because he's looking forward to hearing from that story. Canal Zone Police, they trained specifically on guarding the Sturgis because of the importance of what it had and what it provided, and obviously, you got to know what you're looking at and protecting in the event of having to take some kind of action. And maybe gunfire is not a good thing around nuclear reactors. Who knows? But Canal Zone Police played a role in securing this ship, which, as we've learned, was a nuclear. For you guys that don't know, the Sturgis was a U.S. Navy ship that it wasn't nuclear power ship. It was a ship that had an actual big nuclear reactor on it that was a mobile power plant. And it was parked up against, I don't have the picture handy right now. I don't want to search for it at the moment. But they actually had that moored up against the side there, right next to the Gatun Dam, right in between the Gatun Dam and the Gatun locks. And you could see the connection, the wires there, even after the fact. When it left, you could see where they had run those power lines to it, because it was there for quite a while. It wasn't just a short little 1 or 2 month deal. It was there for quite a long time, and it plugged right into the Gatun power station to supplement the power there, or whatever it did. This is what I'd love to have Jim on to talk to us about that and learn about that story, because I had no idea that we had a nuclear power plant in the Canal Zone, right
For
next
years.
to all of us. Oh yeah, man.
The whole 70s, something like that.
Yeah, so I'll try and give you a call this weekend, Jim, because I want to chat with you about that and see what we can do. Because Vern, like I said, Vern here's got a friend that had a role in that as well, so that would be a lot of fun. Yeah, snowy Wisconsin, I can imagine. It is December, right? It's the days creep by, man, and before we know it, we went from summer to winter time, and so. There you are. A little further south is Steve Tochterman, who's joining us. By the way, guys, Steve Tochterman, Steve and Jesus joined us last year or this year, earlier in the year, talking
6 months ago, yeah.
about their book. Was it Flight of? God, I can't off the top of my head.
Yeah, I'll get you.
Steve, you're gonna kill me. But it's Final Flight, Queen of the Sky, Queen of the Air, Final Flight, Queen of the Air. Okay, great book, all about not just the drug smuggling and all that stuff going on in South America, but also the tremendous fraud involving airplanes and how these guys are just buying and selling planes. And just it was just a whole big scam that they were telling us about. But the interesting thing about that was that, you know, from what we grew up knowing as, you know, back in the 80s, of course, you know, the whole Colombian cartels, Medellin cartel and Cali and all that stuff. And then from there, we know that things shifted to Mexico later on. And we've seen all those, you know, Narcos series and everything else. But what a lot of people didn't realize, myself included, was that in the early 2000s, before Maduro was in power in Venezuela, his predecessor, Hugo Chavez, which was also another, you know, piece of garbage dictator, he basically put the kibosh on the United States and saying, we're going to flood these guys with as much cocaine as we can. We're going to poison that country. And so basically what he did is he opened the doors to the cartels to say, come and operate here in Venezuela, man. We'll give you free reign. So much so that you have to get a permit from the Venezuelan government to fly your drug planes in Venezuelan airspace, which obviously you pay for. And if you don't, you get shot down. And there's so many planes in the Venezuela-Colombian border that have been shot down over the years because they don't pay that fee. But long story short, with everything going on right now in Venezuela, great time to have these guys join us again and kind of give us some background on what really is going on out there. Obviously, in today's world with so much social media and stuff, it's hard to know what's real and what's not. I mean, I got howler monkeys selling hot sauce, you know, so it's really hard to tell what reality is and what isn't anymore. But these guys, you know, they're not just some, you know, Stephen King fiction writer guy. You know, these guys work for the federal government as investigators in both the military and in the FAA. So, you know, when they were on here last time, it was a fascinating story to see how, you know, one aircraft literally in one day changed ownership 3 times, right? Registration flipped 3 times, and
I mean, it's $35 or something like that for that frame.
And just ridiculous. It was some town in Texas somewhere that didn't even have an airport, and that was like the hub of FAA licensed aircraft being registered there for you know, obviously we know what that reason was for, but. I mean, they had a plane land somewhere, pick up a load of cocaine in South America, and when it took off, they get another picture of it, and the registration's different on it. They had already painted on the ground just right there, bam, bam, bam. You know, it was just obscene how quickly they were able to work that system. But so anyhow, they're going to be joining us next week, and again, guys, holidays, the gift giving and gift buying opportunity. Everybody wants to spend a little more of their money. Buy this book. It's a great book. Final Flight, Queen of the Air. The website is there. Get it on there, and you get free shipping from these guys. And again, it's a really good book, and an intriguing story. And you get a signed copy of the book as well from a really cool Zonian. So anyhow, thanks, guys. Appreciate you guys doing that, and looking forward to having you guys join us again next week. Here we go. Yes, absolutely. Here we go. And listen, here we go with the World Cup. I am so excited by that, guys. I am so giddy. I love the World Cup, man. It is. So, do you remember in Panama, Ricky, when we were kids, the World Cup? Remember the Coca-Cola bottles? Remember the bottle caps? They had all the flags of the countries, man, and used to collect them all.
Those, yes.
That was awesome.
And we also got the sticker cards that you would.
Yes. Well, they still have that.
Like the baseball cards.
The Panini books, they call them. The company's Panini, which actually Fanatics owns them now. But yeah, that's also out as well. You know, where you collect all the.
Yeah, and then that's how you knew who the players were.
Yeah, that was fun, man. That was a fun thing to do when the World Cup came around. So yeah, exciting times. I'm definitely excited about that.
Yeah,
the new Pelé. Yeah, Kadir is. Listen, you know, Brazil's a country we know that obviously, you know, starting with Pelé and since then many more superstars and many World Cups, and yet in spite of having all that riches in soccer talent, they want to get a guy from Panama to become a Brazilian. That just tells you what level this guy's at. Yeah.
Hey, Carlton, good to see you on. Hey, guys, Carlton has a shoe business, and he's got a shoe coming up. He did send me the picture, Carlton. I saw it.
Hold on, I got it here. Bear with me.
You got it?
I meant to respond.
But he will, it's called a Panama shoe, and I think if you pair these shoes, Panama hat, and an Alsprague shirt, jeans, shorts, whatever.
Yeah, no kidding.
No, you can't wear shorts. Definitely jeans, because you can't wear leather shoes with shorts.
No, do that.
I think that look is just going to be phenomenal. It's
Yeah.
always good to have Carlton Morris, and I'm sure Miss Sherry Cofer is right next to him.
Let me see.
My beautiful
Hold
neighbor.
on. Let me bear with me here while I pull that one up. Oops, wrong one. Let me do this one.
As everybody knows, Carlton is the photographer of the
Yes, he
Panama
is.
Canal Society. I mean, it's the whole Panama Canal community. Wherever he goes, he always photographs our events. And thank you, Carlton. Throughout the years, you've always taken some pretty cool pictures.
Yes, he does, man. Carl
of all of us,
Carlton, I
and-
mean, listen. He has some iconic pictures of the reunion. They're always
And
really,
the
really
Zonian,
cool pictures.
The Zonian way of life. Yes, he does.
Yeah, so here it is. And again, these are the obviously the more popular countries right now that you can see there. But you know, how cool is a pair of Panama shoes like that? You know, maybe white with red or white with blue or blue with red, whatever the case is. But yeah, that, and like Ricky said, an Al Sprague shirt from the Al Sprague collection, you know, or from even Pasha's Perch, right? The other new
Yep.
collection they have there. Definitely check that out, man, because there's going to be some cool things there. And speaking of the World Cup in Panama, right? If you haven't yet, on Facebook, there's a Facebook page or Facebook group called Zonians Going to the World Cup. Go check it out, follow it. There's going to be a lot of content there, mostly Panama focus, of course. And tomorrow, supposedly, we're going to know what the venue is and when they're going to be playing and where. And so, you know, fingers crossed that it's a good location for well, I'll be selfish for me. I hope it's in Florida or Atlanta, which are two of the
Or
venues.
me here. We have also
yeah,
San
Ricky's got
Francisco.
them in San Francisco, Seattle, and so
hope
but
you guys
either
can
way,
come.
you know, this is like a Super Bowl, right? This is a huge event, and so we want to get a big Zonian crowd if they can to make it out. You know, it's a couple of days of hanging out there together, but go out to these fan zones and hang out with a lot of Panamanians and Zonians and in this case, you know, what are we looking at? Brits and who else? And some people from Ghana, you know, some Ghanaians, right?
Ghanaians,
And
yeah.
Croatians. So, you know, a
All
good
cool
time will be
people.
had.
Everybody there is cool. Yeah,
Yeah,
like
man.
it.
So it would be a really good time. You know, it's a little bit different than what everyone's used to doing, but I think that would be a really fun time. So let's think about that here. Canada, the soccer's like Mexico. Yeah, you know, it really is. You know, they had a good run a couple years ago, but I think that was kind of a
that's
fluke.
true. Last World Cup, wasn't it? They had a good team.
Yeah, and I think the Gold Cup they were doing really well in as well. But they're just one of those teams that it's hit or miss with Canada. You don't, you know, like I said earlier, you don't necessarily fear them, but you got to respect them, right? Because they can do some damage there. Yeah, you know, we haven't talked about the Sturgis dad, but we definitely are going to talk about that. I think that's a really cool episode to talk about. I just swam in the Gatun Lake 3 weeks ago, no nonsense. Yeah, it's por huevao, man. But when that damn alligator comes after you, you won't be laughing about that shit. You'll see. Juega vivo. That's what they were saying in Panama. Hey, juega vivo, right?
No, but I heard. Hey, Henry, I heard that you can't swim. Period. That they
HB,
banned
what's
swimming.
the lowdown on that? HB will tell us. He knows the deal. This guy's informed, man. He's in the loop.
Then Pablo tell us that.
Yeah, it was
That was
called
very
nuclear barge. Okay, so that's what it was, a nuclear barge. Okay, so I guess it didn't have its own power, which would be ironic that you got a giant nuclear power station and you got no power. But I don't know if there's a reason that you have to have a barge, and I guess maybe barges can be powered, right? I'm not sure. That's somebody.
Yeah, ask
some
our
of
captain,
our
Andrew
nautical friends. That
Eftimitis.
might be an Eftimitis question. Yeah, for sure.
10
Surge's power
megawatts.
output
That's
was
good stuff.
10 megawatts. Okay, right on. Look at this guy. And email the info. I tried calling. Yeah, I know. You know, that's one of those things. I'm not a voicemail person. I quit being a voicemail person about 4 years ago. I got tired of my voicemail whenever I'd play it. You know, voicemail's a pain in the ass to listen to because they got to tell you the date, the time, and all that before they give you the message. And it turns out to either be nothing and they hang up, or, you know, hi, we've reached you for whatever. So I just got tired of checking it all the time. And then I haven't checked my voicemail in like 4 years. So whenever somebody, yeah, honest to God,
Well, you're a businessman now. You don't have to
it's
start.
2025, man. There's no reason to leave voicemails. Leave a text message, an email, you know, or a phone call. I pick it up when I'm available and able to. But I am getting another a second phone line though that I will, maybe I'll pay attention to the voicemail on that one. But yes, Jim, I we'll talk this weekend because I really want to talk to you about that show. I think that's going to be a really awesome show to watch. Jim.
Oh yeah, we
Duffus,
don't have David on yet.
Yeah, he's getting ready to jump in there. We're running a little bit long here, but he's getting ready to pull in here. The power plant that fed 44 kilowatt was the backbone of the Canal power system. Interesting. Okay. Yeah, that would be fascinating to see what its purpose was. Was it planned to be that way? Was it something that suddenly came up and said, hey, great idea. This thing's running around. Let's put it to work here.
Canal's on mic.
Yep. It's easy, Mike. We got to come
96. Which mic is that?
I know. So we had to come up with a database of the folks
Identified.
Ricky, close your window, but he can't, poor thing. He close that window, he'll burn up, man. These guys don't have AC out there in California, man. They don't use that.
Oh, is the noise outside pretty bad? Because I got the earphones on.
It's okay now. It's not bad now. Earlier, I think he put that in when the fire truck went by again.
Oh, really? I mean,
yep.
Unbelievable, right? Every Friday between 5 and 7, my neighborhood has a fucking fire. Oops. Yeah. A freaking fire.
You're at the bar. It's okay.
Hey, Mark.
Yeah. Good to see you,
Unbelievable.
Mark put out a new song last week, Christmas on the Isthmus of Panama. Christmas in the Canal Zone. I forget what the name of it is, but so that was a fun video to do. I learned a couple of new techniques to throw out there. That was kind of neat. You had Santa Claus flying by at the end of it there, flies by you on the admin building. So that was a lot of fun. But, that's tomorrow. The PCS. I think at this point, if you haven't signed up, it's a little late for that one. But
still go. It's always party.
But still go.
With Zonians afterwards.
Yep, Steve, let's see here. Thank you for mentioning the book. Yes, Final Flight Queen of the Year. And next week, yeah, absolutely. We're excited to have you guys on because this is front news right now. And again, there's a lot of rumors going around of what's going on, what's not going on. And these guys are, they've got the pulse on that. It's something that they've been talking about. I know that Jesus mentioned recently that they're looking at a sequel anyway. So I imagine there's a lot more investigating and stuff going on now and a lot more intel there. Leave Croatian chicks are hot. There you go. See, there's a reason right there, the guys to make it out to the World Cup and to the fan zone there. I missed the question. The question is, what kind of an ahuevao do you have to be to go out and swim in the Gatun Lake with all those crocs and gators and caiman and everything else? Or maybe Leaf's right. Maybe there isn't anything out there, but we'll see.
We'll see.
Yeah, it is a great story. Absolutely, it really, really is. It's intriguing and it's. I remember the part that always sticks out to me is, remember, Ricky, that image of the map, and it had all the red lines, which were the routes of the aircraft, and they literally went all just along the border of Colombia. They didn't cross over because Colombia will shoot you down too.
Panama, yeah,
and then they went up over the water, the Caribbean there, and then they flew off that way, and it was, it's a super highway. There's no kidding that it was. Absolutely, just so much aircraft flying out
But the
of there.
CIA also took advantage of that. Used that same route on the opposite direction, went in there, got all those political prisoners out, and snuck them out.
They flew them out there because they realized that that was an area that people were flying clandestine in, so it was easy to lay low in a sense.
Yeah. That was a CIA move. And we already knew about it because of the show. Right.
So the water soldiers, so the actual canal could run. Yes, absolutely. It makes sense. It's a smart move, right? It's an absolutely smart move. HB, what do we got here? Juice, so I've been hearing all about life, but you aren't really allowed to swim out there. Okay.
Yeah, that's what we heard, that you're not allowed to swim out there anymore. So, Leafy, you're going to get in trouble. Te van a poner modelo.
Cuidado, right there. And actually, it's not that far from there to go to the damn penitentiary. There you go. What do they call that place now? It's
Modelo 2.
No. What is the name of the penitentiary now? It's something Renacer, isn't that El Campo Renacer?
Oh, could be.
I believe it's something like that,
Yeah,
But,
I don't know.
Yeah, no, that's fine. Anyway, listen, guys, we got to move along. Dave's been waiting patiently.
We've got
David. A great behind-the-scenes show. But, of course, as usual, guys, we want to take care of our sponsors. I mentioned earlier Texit Coin, and their gift card program there, so look them up, texitcoin.org. But our main sponsor is our Howler Monkey Sauce, and don't forget, this is a Zonian company, right? Tommy Ellis, Conan Herring, these guys, they're in Jacksonville now, but they started this company with all Panamanian ingredients. It's a great, great hot sauce. They've got 4 different versions, and they're looking for a spokesperson. They're looking for somebody to sell their hot sauce. It's available on Amazon. It's available in grocery stores. But they want somebody to take it to that next level. They've been looking at a couple of different howler monkeys, right? We've met a howler monkey before.
Gamboa.
So
far, my favorite.
Yeah.
I like Mac. Mac's been cool, too.
You know, but so these guys now, the newest one then is a new howler monkey that they found that we were talking about when you mentioned Howard Air Force Base, a guy by the name of Mac. So let's check out what Mac has to do here.
We're still looking for our Howler Monkey hot sauce spokesperson. Just got an email from Panama.
You've got mail.
Hey, I'm Mac, and I grew up behind Howard Air Force Base in Panama. I can talk about hot sauce. On pizza, uy, que rico. So I just miro la camera and say, I'm Mac. I grew up in these trees next to Howard Air Force Base. Hey, are we really going to Napoli? And let me tell you, the flavors of ají chombo, garlic, and onions, they each hit you one at a time, and it's so delicious. Howler Monkey Original brings the true taste ají chombo of Panama to your pizza game.
Do you know a Howler Monkey who can describe the sweet heat of our original with authentic ají chombo peppers? Or the fresh punch of verde, where habanero warmth meets crisp bell pepper? How about the bold tang of Amarillo, yellow Scotch bonnets blended with mustard seeds? And of course, our hot, the same great flavor as original, fired up with red habaneros for that fire. Our sauces are all natural, no preservatives, gluten-free, pure flavor and pure fire. Are you the next Howler Monkey spokesperson?
That's Mac.
Right on, Willie.
Howard Air Force Base to join the crowd. So we'll see if it's going to be Gamboa, it's going to be Mac, or maybe somebody else. So, but nonetheless, joining us now is neither Mac or Gamboa. It's Dave Dahlstrom, our Canal's on his tour. And Dave, how you doing, man? Merry Christmas to you, man.
Hey, thanks, guys. Good to see you.
Yeah,
Good to see you, Mr. David. Thank you so much for joining us once a month, my friend. Well, actually, twice a month last
It's been 3 times this month.
Dave's a regular, and now he's
Yeah,
become a
you guys are working me to death.
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
But this has been real fun. You know, starting in September, I started looking at stuff for the November Patria Days in Panama,
Right.
and I came across this article about Buenaventura, and it was titled "The Man Who Made Panama." I'm like, what the heck?
Right.
And so I started reading it and started finding other stuff about him. And what an interesting man. And you know, so we're going to spend a few moments talking about this man, particularly around the 1885 to 1903 period.
Right.
And you know, the interesting thing about Buenaventura is that he was actually only in Panama for about 3 years, from about 1885 to 1889, 1888, 1889. And you know, the canal, the revolution and stuff wasn't until 1903. It was like 15 years later. So there's a big gap in history that I really didn't appreciate. And this man has written a number of books and has shed some light on it. I think I mentioned last time too that, you know, he's telling the story and he's not under oath. It's just a book, but he has several books and he's consistent through it.
Right.
And it just gives a part of the history. And, you know, I've kind of come to the conclusion, not only was this man kind of responsible for creating Panama, he's also responsible for creating the Canal Zone.
Right on.
And so I think it's at least a look at what he has to say and his story and all the things that transpired. And it's kind of amazing all the things that happened to this man over those like 15 years after he left Panama.
Yeah.
That just kind of magically interconnected with each other to end the way that we know it.
Yeah. Well, and back then things were not easy to accomplish. Travel times were very long,
Yeah.
and so this guy's persistence. Thank God it was what it was, because as you're going to learn here, there was a lot of moving parts way before that early November date there,
Mhm.
which is very intriguing here. I'm fascinated. When we were working on this today, I was just fascinated
Yeah.
with what's coming here. But so yeah, go ahead and tell us what the whole Buna Maria global diplomacy is all about, because we want to hear
All
what
right.
happened
All
behind the
right.
scenes here.
So what slide are we on now? We're on
This is
number
the
two.
first one. We are now on number 2 here, which is what we're going to be focusing on.
All right. I got two things going on here, and have to bear with me one second. You're making me memorize all this stuff literally. I have no notes
well,
tonight.
fortunately, we cut it down then, which is going to help.
Yeah.
But
But yeah, so um I guess one of the things I wanted to just kind of go back. This is flashback of kind of what we've talked about many times, and um, you know the the French in 1884, 1885 were went bankrupt,
right,
and that's when Buenaventura had to leave. They closed down operations, and he went back to France. And they were going through the hearings where they had the Panama scandal, where they were trying some of the French company people for crimes. A lot of people lost their money. Um, Panama was really given a bad name in France. It was an embarrassment to them. Um, and so it was a rough time. But one of Varia, when he was a young boy, they were building the Suez Canal,
right,
and de Lesseps was a hero, and
sure,
that really got him motivated. And he became an engineer, went to a very prestigious school, and became an engineer. And he actually got a job working for or going to school at Bridges and Roads School, and he was supposed to serve 5 years there, but he was so interested in the canal, he quit that job and went as a young 26-year-old to Panama and started working on the canal. They gave him the job of working on the Pacific side from the Pacific Ocean to Calabria Cut, and he actually made some significant improvements on the way that the canal digging was done. He developed new techniques, and he started getting bigger machines and all this stuff. But there was so much corruption and such that it just everything went sideways.
what's interesting about that, Dave? You know we've gotten to know now Buenaventura. We've certainly started hearing stories about him over the last year with that you come and share with us. But even up until this point here, I don't think I realized that he wasn't involved with the French Canal operation at the beginning. That
No,
he decided at some point, hey,
yeah, he was.
I, he
Yeah,
was a
he
guest at
he
some point.
he got involved right at the end of the first French company that
Okay,
failed, and he became part of the second company. And so he went down there
interesting.
1884, 1885,
Sure.
and started working. And of course, that second company went bankrupt in 1888, 1889, and so he had to leave. But um, and again, he was very pro French, very proud Frenchman, and
Sure.
stuff like that. And he was very, very, very pro Panama Canal. I mean, he learned a lot about the Calabria Cut and all the slides and all the rock formations and all the
Right.
challenges that they had. And they kept a lot of engineer um, records about that and such. In fact, he actually wanted to work for the Panama Canal with the U.S., but they wouldn't let him. Um,
Oh wow.
but he goes back to France, kind of embarrassed, like a lot of folks, disappointed in what had happened. And then as in these books that I'm reading about him, he tells a story that it's 1889. So it's like 4 years after he's left, or 1894. Sorry, it's like 4 or 5 years after he's left Panama, and he's on a train from Dortmund, Germany, going back to Paris. He was living in Paris, and I've taken that route on train, and it's a quite lengthy train ride. And I guess back then, if you're in a steam train, it probably took longer. Um, and he gets on the train, and there's these, the compartments where other people are in that little compartment, kind of sharing a compartment. And there's a man that's like sleeping in there. It's early in the morning, and he wakes this man up, and they say hello, and the guy says hello to him in French, but he realizes he has a Russian accent. But they strike up a conversation since he can speak French, so they're talking in French, and he says that before too long, they became like really good friends and stuff. And he's talking to him, and he starts telling him about. He suspects that he's some type of Russian um, royalty or something like that.
Okay.
And he starts telling him about his dismay with Panama and how he kind of longs to revive Panama. And he had written this book in 1892, 2 years before, that kind of described how Panama Canal was superior to the Nicaraguan area. And he writes up all these things about, engineering wise, why it makes more sense.
Sure.
And stuff like that. So he's telling this guy about it. And then the man presents his card to him, and it's Prince Talish. I can't remember his name. I can't remember his name. See, that's why I don't have my notes here. But he's a prince of Russia.
Okay.
And he says, "I'm going to take your information back. I think the king of emperor of Russia would be very interested in this." And when they get to Paris, they hang out some more, and he starts. Benavides comes up with this idea that if you can get the Russians to commit to paying the dividends that are due on the bonds, he can revive this French company. And at that point, the French company was still going under bankruptcy. He didn't actually work for the French company anymore, but he still had this belief that he could get the Panama Canal back on track. I guess the company had been for sale for a while, but no one was.
And that would be his only avenue.
Yeah, I mean, they wanted umpteen millions of dollars.
Sure.
And no one wanted to pay that. And so the prince looks at all the information and says, I think this might be something that the emperor would be interested in. So he takes it back to St. Petersburg, Russia, and they invite Buenaventura to St. Petersburg, and they meet a gentleman, the finance director of Russia. His name is Sergei Witt, and they talk to him about it, and he says, "This sounds like something that the emperor would be interested in, and I'll let you know what he decides." And the emperor decides he's really interested in this. The only problem is that Buenaventura doesn't represent the French company or the government of France. So he tells them, "Hey, we would support this and be basically bankroll this if you can get the French government to support it." So Buenaventura is like, "Well, I've had tougher jobs. I'll go see what I can do." So he manages to go back to France and talk to the president of France at the time. His name was last name was Perrier, believe it or not, and he's like, "This is very intriguing. I think this is something we could probably do."
Right.
Unfortunately, King Alexander, Emperor Alexander in Russia, is assassinated, and the Emperor of king of France or the president of France gets cholera and dies.
Wow. Holy cow.
So there's that one. That's that one issue. The other issue they were having too is that the Monroe Doctrine.
Right.
You know, how do you allow like a government to come in and build a canal in the Western Hemisphere? U.S. had a policy where they weren't letting any foreign jurisdictions build a canal, and that's where it was the French company before. So there were some issues, but he's trying. He's still trying to sell that company. And around that time, it ends up being like 1998,
1898.
1898, and there's the Nicaraguan Canal Commission, where the U.S. is looking at Nicaraguan route, and they're thinking that's better than the Panama route,
Right.
and the U.S. establishes the Isthmian Canal Commission, and around that time, there's an exhibition in Paris, um, and the U.S. sends some of their Isthmian Canal Commission admirals and lieutenant colonels, like engineers, to come look at some of the French engineer documents that they have.
Right.
And so they're in Paris, and the story that one of Ria tells is that he he goes to this restaurant, and everyone is at the exposition, and so the restaurants are empty. But he walks in there, and there's three gentlemen that are sitting there, and one of the gentlemen comes up and introduces himself, and it's one of the U.S. Engineers, and they start having a conversation about Panama and Panama Canal, and one of Maria has the same book that he gave to the Prince of Russia, and says, "Hey, take a look at this. I think if you look at this document, you will agree that Nicaragua doesn't make any sense, that Panama makes sense, and you can look at all my writings, and if you find that anything in there is not accurate, then pick
Challenge it.
Nicaragua."
Yeah.
And so he's trying to convince these guys, and they kind of think he's making a lot of sense. And so those guys go back to the U.S. and kind of try to support looking at Panama before they make this Nicaraguan decision.
This is where that guy Cromwell comes in, the lobbyist that you mentioned a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah. So Cromwell is an attorney for the new Panama Canal Company, the French company, and they were going through the bankruptcy and such like that. And one of Ria, contacts Cromwell and others, and because one of Ria knew him when he was working in Panama as the lawyer for the new French company, and they had been friends ever since. And also during this time that Bonavria is in Paris, there were I can't ever say this word, but the plenipotarian or whatever, basically the representative of the U.S. Government to France. At one point, Benjamin Franklin was one, and Thomas Jefferson was one. But after the Civil War, there was a gentleman by the name of Bigelow that was that representative, and had been in Paris for a number of years, and Buenaventura got to know him. And of course, he's very well connected to the United States as well. And he was a big supporter of Buenaventura. So he was giving positive vibes back to his folks in the U.S. about the Panama situation.
Sure.
And then Bigelow was actually replaced by a gentleman by the name of John Hay, and we've heard about the Hay-Haran Treaty and the Hay-Buenaventura Treaty. And John Hay had actually been the private secretary of President Lincoln. And after Lincoln was assassinated, he was sent to Paris to be the representative, U.S. representative there. And Buenaventura got to know Hay during that period. So Buenaventura got to know a lot of U.S. Like he didn't know the president, but John Hay becomes Secretary of State in the early 1900s. He's a Secretary of State. He's third in line.
Yeah, indeed.
You got the president, the vice president, and then the Secretary of State, which was John Hay, and so. One of shortly after
So now they're getting swayed
Yeah.
away from Nicaragua and saying, "Hey, wait a minute, let's take a look at
yeah.
Panama." It's maybe a failure in the eyes of the media, but
Yeah.
you know.
Well, yeah. Well, they're getting swayed, and then there's another gentleman by the name of Pavey that worked with a lot of the banks, and he had been in New York, and then he comes to Paris, and he meets with Buenaventura, and he brings some other gentlemen with them, and the other gentlemen are bigwigs in chambers of commerce and stuff, and they say, hey, we'd like you to come and talk to our Cincinnati Chamber of Commerce, and this is early 1901, and there are some people there that you'd probably like to meet, and one of them was like Senator Hanna and
Mark
and
Hanna.
some other names, and so he's like, all right, well, invite me and I'll come. So he gets invited to the United States in 1901 to come talk to chambers of commerce. So he goes to Cincinnati
And now,
and talks
real
to
quick, Dave, at this point in 1901, is the French Canal Company operating still, or have they shut down?
No. They shut down in 1888.
Oh wow, so it's been over 10 years
Yeah,
now. And still,
yeah.
But
right.
they're still haggling over this thing that somebody owes somebody money, and
Yeah, they haven't sold it, and so Buenaventura actually bought a lot of the stock, and then of course we talked about it last time that Colombia actually owned a lot of the stock, and of course Colombia was going through at the same time. Colombia is going through civil wars and such.
That's right.
And we talked about the Thousand-Day War and Victorio Lorenzo. He was a liberal fighter, and earlier we talked about Cartagena, how Cartagena was one of the first provinces to declare independence from Spain. So they had kind of a MOI of trying to separation of the powers and stuff, but they got crushed and stuff. And I guess the same thing with when Colombia was in power. They weren't always happy in Cartagena with the way they were being treated. Correct. And when they got, fought, a lot of them dispersed to Panama, the Isthmus of Panama, because it's a little bit safer over there. So there were a lot of liberals in Panama. Basically, they were dissatisfied Colombians. Right. And then, of course, the Colombians would send the troops stationed in Panama City and Colon, and they had, I think we've talked about 50 different uprisings that were crushed.
53.
Yeah. So, but a lot of it was because I guess Panama was a nice hideout from being oppressed. But they had a long history of rebellions and such, but they really never were able to succeed over that. But so when Buenaventura is in Cincinnati, he's meeting with folks and stuff. He hears that there's a gentleman by the name of Herrick. He's Archbishop, and he's got some influence. He's a very influential person with President McKinley, and he asked people in Cincinnati. He goes, "Does anyone know this Mr. Herrick?" And they're like, "Oh yeah, he's in Cleveland. You should go to Cleveland and meet with him." So he goes to Cleveland, and goes and talks to their chamber of commerce, and he meets Mr. Herrick, and Mr. Herrick invites him to his house, and so he's explaining about Panama and Nicaragua, and he's very interested, and he tells them, like, stick around, I'll introduce you to President McKinley one day, and then he goes
And
on.
now, is he leaning towards Panama also, or is he?
Yes.
Okay.
If actually, when he goes to Cleveland, what he hears in Cleveland is that Cleveland is a Panama town.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
So the
Right.
full court press was on, man.
Yep. Right. So, but when when the Nicaraguan Canal Commission was looking at, and they called it the American Canal back then, that was going to be in Nicaragua. When the House and stuff were voting on it for approval, it was pretty much unanimous that it was going to be Nicaragua in 1901.
Wow.
They also
And
got funding, right? They also had that $40
yep,
million
they had the
funding.
$40 million. And so these guys were kind of doing their due diligence on it and sending people to Paris and other things to check it out, doing their studies. But in the meantime, you've got Buenaventura trying to convince people to do otherwise. So, he publishes this pamphlet, and he prints like 15,000 of these pamphlets, and he's passing them out to all these chambers of commerce and stuff, saying, hey, take a look at Panama first before you make this investment. And then he goes to New York, and he talks to the New York Chamber of Commerce. He talks to Princeton and others, and he gets invited to meet with a lot of influential people, and starts making the case that you need to look at Panama. And about 1902 or so, when they're concluding this, they decide they will um, select Panama. So there's almost a 180 reversal.
Sure.
And part of it was because he was knocking on doors, convincing people, and he was
Amazing. And
doing
an
it.
engineer, you don't think of engineers as being salespeople.
Yeah.
Usually those
And
are the two opposites
He
ends
was
of the
also
spectrum.
very financially motivated.
he
Right.
yeah he
But
definitely
an engineer
financially
typically is a
motivated.
left-brain person, and for him to be able to
Yeah.
talk to
But
that many people and win,
sure.
I mean,
But he also started talking to the Colombians. He knew the Colombian generals and stuff from his time in Panama.
he didn't care who was going to sign that check as long as he got
He
paid.
but he was telling the Colombians, look, you either negotiate with the Americans or you're going to lose this canal. They're going to build in Nicaragua, and there will be no reason for a Panama Canal. There'll be no reason for a Panama Railroad.
Yeah,
But
exactly.
but also what the Colombians were doing is that they were shaking down the French Canal Company. They wanted $10 million bribe to be able to sign that deal. So so there was a lot of and not all the Colombians were in favor of signing a treaty with the Americans.
Right.
So there was, just like anything, it was like 50-50. And how can you convince it? Not all the Colombians were interested in signing that treaty with the U.S.
So we're kind of at a tipping point then. What's going to be then the kicker?
Right. So then, what ends up happening is that about this time the Hey Haran Treaty is getting ready to expire because the Colombians weren't going to approve it. Then something needed to happen.
Sure.
And if they couldn't get the treaty with the Colombians, the Americans were going to choose Nicaragua. And then the other option is that Panama could declare its independence. And about this time, in September of 1903, Buenaventura, he had been back in Paris, but he comes back to New York. He gets called back from Paris, from these folks in D.C. and New York to come back and to talk. And at this point, he hasn't even talked to Amador or anyone in the Panamanian government, at least not in his writings. and they're talking about a revolution. They said they're starting to hear rumors that Panama wants to do a revolution because the Colombian government has been in civil war.
They're oppressing
You
them.
know, their troops are depleted, their money's depleted. You know, they're going to run out of options. The other thing is that they're hearing is that the Colombians are trying to negotiate with the Germans to create a, a shell company that's Colombian, but it's going to be German engineers that are going to build that canal. And what the Colombians are going to do is they're going to just take the French company rights, basically eminent domain, what they have. So French would be getting nothing.
Right. Hence Bunivaria and
And
all his new stock that he bought.
yeah, so you got Buenaventura saying, "Look, I'm either going to get nothing, or I need to find something
But
that's
but
going on."
David,
So
there was
he,
also something going on the side with the 1,000 Day War. At that
yeah,
time, Benjamin Herrera, Belisario Porras, and
hmm
Victoriano Lorenzo, as well as Carlo Mendoza, those guys almost took the isthmus from the Colombians
hmm
in a big fight. Now, after that fight, when they killed
right,
Victoriano Lorenzo,
and,
so that fight, which they almost lost, the Colombian government, Bogota almost lost, made Panama, Bogota realized that point that Panama was ungovernable. And this is the time now that encouraged
hmm
the Junta Revolucionaria, which was who was on the junta? Jose Agustino Arango, Boyd, Amador Guerrero, those guys.
hmm
That's what gave them the
yep,
where
That
they came
emboldened
together
them.
and said, "Look, this is the time to do it now
yes,
or
right.
never."
Yes, so that's what I guess Cromwell, who was the attorney for the Panama Railroad. They
Mhm.
were hearing it. They had Beers, who was we always hear about him like holding up the train to keep the Colombians from coming over during the invasion. But so these guys are telling New York, Washington what's going on. They realize that they have a very short period. The other thing of it is that on October 31st of 1903, Congress goes in recess.
Oh wow.
So guess what?
October 31st. That's 4 days before. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's a
So
big day.
so what happens when there's no Congress? Well, the president can kind of do some things that
Sure.
Oh, right,
The pen
right.
takes over.
yeah. So it was like now's the time it needs to happen. But when they bring Buenaventura over from Paris, basically he's telling the people in New York and DC is that the problem with Panamanians, they don't have any money for a revolution. And so
And
he
Oh.
yeah,
he bankrolls a revolution, or at least he agrees to. What I read was that he agreed to pay $100,000 to pay the Colombian troops, which was about $3.5 million in today's money. He only like end up spending $20,000. But but he
He invested
bankrolls
the
that
rest of
money.
it.
And the other part, we're not going to get into much of the Amador um,
trip because
discussion,
he went
but
right before BV went,
mhm,
and Guerrero was he went to both the government and Wall Street, but only
mhm,
Wall Street gave him the backing. So Guerrero did get money
yeah,
from Wall Street to help support the revolution, as
yeah,
well as Ecuador,
yeah,
Venezuela, and Costa Rica's coffee exporters. They were
yeah,
main supporters
mhm,
of the revolution.
yeah. So but when Amador comes to the United States, he apparently goes to see John Hay,
Mhm.
and John Hay won't see him.
Correct,
Oh boy.
correct, correct. They wanted to see
And
him.
so
That's
he
true.
goes to Buenaventura, kind of like as a out of desperation.
Sure.
And
And
that's
that's why they
where
sent him because they wouldn't pay attention to Guerrero, the
so
government.
yeah, so we'll get into that next, but we're going to kind of stop there. But a lot of this a
It's
lot
a
of
great
this
story.
this discussion about the you know Panama or the revolution and all of this happened in Senate and getting the U.S. commitments, because the U.S. wouldn't actually. I could never find anything that would say that the U.S. is going to get involved. It was all done, secret or
based on precedents.
press or a wink and a nod type of thing,
Yeah.
based on precedent. And the other that's a good thing to point out is that in 1885, Buenaventura is in Panama, and that's when there was a rebellion, which that Pedro Preston um, um,
In Cologne.
revolutionaries. He was kind of leading that. They captured a U.S. mail steamship and held hostages, basically, of the Panama Railroad, and the Colombian troops were sent over to crush it, and the revolutionaries set Cologne on fire, and the U.S. had 3 warships. One of them was the USS Galena that was out there, and they basically they had the 1946 Bidlack treaty that basically said the U.S. would maintain security and would basically squash rebellions against Colombia. So
that was part of what was set up prior to the building of the Panama Railroad, which would help guarantee some of that safety.
Right, exactly. Because the U.S. was given rights to construct the railroad. Actually, there was a concession for that, but basically, the U.S. was allowed to transport across the isthmus as long as they maintained security for it and protected Colombia from rebellions. And so Buenaventura witnesses this happening, knowing that when there's a rebellion, the U.S. will defend it, and that he uses that knowledge when he starts crafting the treaty or this rebellion, knowing that the U.S. will have to intervene.
Correct.
And so when they're asking directly, will the U.S. intervene? They don't really say, but he gets wind about different boats, and they're being sent, and so he surmises they're being sent from Kingston, Jamaica to Panama, and which actually what happened. But he realizes what the U.S. policy is. He lived it and saw it, and and
use it in his favor.
He actually used it in his favor. So he kind of was in just a position. He happened to be kind of like the right man in the right place that connected a lot of these things. Because real, as you mentioned, communication wasn't that easy back then. You had cables. If you wrote a letter, it probably took you several days for it to get across and stuff like that. You didn't have a voicemail. Couldn't leave a voicemail. Of course, you'd never get it in 4 years, but so it was very, very difficult. And so you start reading about this, and you think about all the connections that were made over the decades.
Right.
And it was almost 15 years since Buenaventura left, and he wasn't. And I think if you look, we talked about the French Plaza last time.
Yeah.
I don't think there's a bust of Buenaventura there.
Wait, by the way, it's inauguration tonight of that French Plaza.
Is it? All right.
Very good. Look at that.
I mean, they did a beautiful job with it, but I don't think Buenaventura is recognizing it, is he?
Well, I think we're learning that he was very, very much underappreciated for what he's did for all of us.
Well, he when you read what he did, I can see in the Panamanian legislation's eyes, he was a traitor.
Oh no, I got some quotes here. He was known as he was effective but not legitimate.
Yeah.
What other thing? Brilliant but self-serving.
Definitely self-serving. I mean, he basically, it was to himself and the Canal and to France. Mm-hmm. And basically, when you read his book, he basically says, like, if we do this, we'll like restore the good name of France back.
But listen, the good thing about him though was that he was acting for Panama's outcome, for there to be
he wanted Panama to succeed.
Yeah,
to
I
see,
think.
and like you said, David, he also is the reason why we have a canal zone. Because
Well,
if we were a sea level, there would be no need for a canal zone.
yeah. Well, he also wrote the treaty language that extended the boundary from 3 miles that was in the Haran Treaty to 5 miles on either side to be 10 miles,
Mm-hmm.
and then of course the in perpetuity clause, basically giving sovereignty as sovereign to the U.S. And he knew that that alone would convince the American sides, both the pros and the cons, because again, that was a 50-50 crapshoot,
Sure.
that if there was enough leverage to make it favorable to the US,
Right.
that it would get approved. And that was his logic going back to Amador, was that it may not have passed if you wanted it the way that it had
Right.
originally been set up with the Haran Treaty. They may not have
Mm-hmm.
approved it.
Right. I mean, he at this point has been in Washington, in New York, in Cincinnati. He's talked to everybody. He knows
Paris.
how it works.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And so, to that point, Dave, he's telling these guys, look, it may not be on the up and up and the way you guys want it presented, but if you want a country and you want a canal
Yep.
that's going to guarantee your country, this is how you have to do it.
Yeah.
There's no
And I
ifs,
think,
buts about
yeah.
it.
And the rest is history. Just like any of these treaties that we've talked about, they all get broken or revised.
Right.
So even though we have the Panama Canal Treaty, we'd like to think of it as Zonians, that it could never be changed.
Right. Perpetuity.
In perpetuity. Here's like there's no debate. It
Yeah.
is what it is. It till the end of time.
But listen,
But it
at
would,
the time, all treaties, all that stuff was in perpetuity. I mean, Guam, Puerto Rico,
well, yeah. In
Cuba, all
perpetuity
those.
also meant 99 years in a lot of
Correct,
instances.
correct. 99 years,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, but I think in the original Haran Treaty, it said 99 years, and then it was changed in perpetuity, meaning forever and ever.
Right. So
Which
now, Dave, when it, like on the screen here it says, so why Galena matters then. So put that into context then. What was it about Galena and what Buenaventura saw there and said, hey, wait a minute, this is what we need to use. This is going to help sway this.
Well, he knew the power of the United States Navy. He knew that they had an obligation to protect American interests, protect the railroad, and
I think that may have opened the eyes of a lot of people in the United States and said, hey, it's almost like you realize, hey, we're actually their big brother. We have to be here.
Well, they did intervene once in Panama to protect the railroad.
Well, remember the Monroe Doctrine is still, at this point, is still not that far off. The
and
Monroe
that was
Doctrine
that was the precedence that he saw that would guarantee that the United States would defend whatever treaty that they were going to do. So that was why Galena mattered so much.
That they basically burned down. If you recall some of the maps that we've shown in the past of Cologne,
right?
There was like the part where the port is, the piers and stuff. That was the U.S. side, and then kind of like right in the middle, there was a dividing line, and then that was the Panama side.
Yeah.
And basically, when the town was burnt down, it was basically only the Panama side that burned down, and it probably was that on the American side, they had troops there, and maybe you didn't want to cross the troops, but the other thing, they might have had fire protection as well.
Concrete buildings.
But what I did read was that during those fires, the piers were burnt down, and that Dingler, there was a French engineer named Dingler, you might have heard us talk about a couple times.
2 weeks ago.
He was expecting a new shipment of dredges and stuff to come in like that next day.
Right.
And they couldn't land them. They couldn't unload them because they didn't have any piers there. So it was a very big threat to stability and stuff not to have that. So but the Galena, there were like several hundred men on that ship, and they had Gatling guns, and they came ashore, and they squashed it, and basically they took um the I guess it was the Colombians, but they took that rebel leader and they hung him right there on the railroad tracks.
Here's
And
another real quick map of what you're talking about there. As you can see that layout of Cologne and Cristobal, and you have that divider there. It's a real interesting map I found recently that, as you can see on here, you have Cristobal. The new Cristobal is all the way up on the north corner of the map there. And then the old Cristobal, you see those piers there. But all that green area on the screen there, that's all Cologne. That's Panama.
right. And back in the day, the piers were up like where the green is on the water.
Right, correct. That
Yeah,
jutting
so
out part
all
wasn't
that
there.
yellow stuff is newer.
That's canal construction part there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But the Panama Railroad and stuff like that, it used to come through the green area. It was it was a little bit different location than we know it now. Same with the Panama Railroad in Panama City. It used to end where the fish markets are.
Correct. Yes, I remember that.
And then they had big warehouses there, and so that was the terminus. And the U.S. owned all that land. And I believe if you looked at old property maps, I couldn't find it, but if you look at old property maps during that time, you will see one of the biggest landowners in that area is a Mr. Cromwell.
Oh, how convenient.
So he probably made a lot of money. He probably owned stock, and that and he had connections back to government officials. And if you look at all these things, all these guys are connected in some way. A lot of times it's through universities. You see Columbia University and Princeton, and Harvard, and of course the Business Association. And if Aspinwall, he was a New York like Wall Street guy.
Yes,
that got involved in building the railroads. But that's where he came from. So all these guys had
major
connections
projects like that. It was typically banks and financiers that led the way, and then the governments got involved. The governments weren't in the business of printing money like you are today.
Well, that's another thing too that we haven't really talked about. But even the Nicaraguan Canal and originally the Panama Canal, there were bids that it would be done by private companies.
Yeah.
And they actually canceled they had two contractors picked out, and they actually canceled it, and they decided it would be a U.S. project. And I think part of that reason is with the Hey-Pontefract Treaty, with the British, kind of this anti-colonialism thing that no government was supposed to control the canal.
Right.
And so they were going to have these private companies actually do the canal, and it would be a sea level canal. And then I think the government decided we don't want these big companies, because they're just going to like the French company, they're just going to bilk the money out of us, and we're not going to get it built.
All into profit taking.
Yeah. So, or you didn't pay me enough.
Right.
But so it's just really interesting. All these connections that have happened, and just like how do like just sitting in a train and the man next to you tells you, oh yeah, my boss can bankroll your canal project.
Yeah, right.
And then I'm going to a restaurant in Paris, and the man walks up and says, hey, guess what, I'm an engineer for the Nicaraguan Canal.
That's almost another version of Manifest Destiny right there.
Yeah. And you just think, was this planted? But how how do you know? I mean, but what would motivate
what signal told you to talk to that person?
Buenaventura just decide, I'm going to go out to eat in this restaurant this night at this time.
Yeah.
What if he just said, I'm just going to eat at home tonight? Or
indeed.
Hey, look, there's a street vendor, maybe I'll just get some monkey meat.
This whole story is like that. The Panama Canal came together because of like all the stars aligned.
Yeah, a series of coincidences.
I mean, it was any one little thing could have gone just different.
We're not here.
All bets off. We wouldn't be here talking.
Yeah, no doubt. No
It's
doubt about it,
unbelievable how it all came together. Yeah.
Yeah, that's fascinating. And so so Buenaventura now has gotten to that point where, as it says on the screen here, the narrative is now flipped here. Okay, you got the engineering comparisons that you've been talking about. Obviously, the financial ones there. Let's talk about the media influence here that we're mentioning here, and then of course that volcano stamp scare, because that played a big role, as it turns out.
Yeah. One of the things that Buenaventura did is there was a magazine or a newspaper in France, and it was called La Matin, and his brother ended up buying it later on, but at the time, his brother I don't think was the editor or the owner. He started writing articles about Panama and Nicaragua Canal, and he actually wrote a letter or like an editorial just before the Colombians were going to reject the Hague-Haran Treaty, and basically told them, look, you guys have either two choices. You're either going to make this deal, or you're going to lose the canal out to Nicaragua, and you're not going to get anything.
Deal's going to be made.
Deal's going to be made. So he telegraphed that months before that.
Yeah.
And I think Obaldia, we talked about Obaldia being the last governor of Panama under Colombian rule. He was a senator, and he was the only one that basically said they're going to revolt, and I'm going to support them.
Right.
If you don't come to your senses, and so they use the media. There were newspaper articles that were written, but what we've always heard was that stamp, that volcano stamp.
Yeah.
And Buenaventura talks about how he got that stamp, got 90 of them, had a document typed up and talked about how the volcano erupted and how it destroyed a dock and all the coffee on it, and
put the big
and
scare
how scary it was, and why would you want to build a canal like in this volcano, even though it was like 30 miles away from where the canal was going. But he also he sent it, the 90 of them, to each one of the elected officials in the U.S. He also did some newspaper articles on it, and then there was another volcano that happened in, I want to say, Martinique.
I think it was that or Guadeloupe.
Guadeloupe.
No, I think it was Martinique. You're right with Martinique.
One of those two, yeah.
Because you talked about that before.
And it exploded, and like 30,000 people died, and it was kind of like, hey, this is going to happen if you do Nicaragua. So he used that to kind of to stoke fear, even though it was unrealistic fear. If you don't know, you don't know.
Yep. Mount Pelée in Martinique, yes, 1902. Yep.
And does it say 30,000 people?
I closed the tab there, but yeah.
Well, it was
a devastating volcano.
Yeah, it was a lot of people, and
enough that it got people's attention.
Yeah, exactly. So you could use it to justify. And the other part, he did all these cost-effective things. Like, number one, it's this much shorter. Number two, it would take this much less earth to move. And number three, it would
he sold it.
He basically, so like, why would you pick Nicaragua?
Yeah,
why? Yeah, and like you said, he convinced the public to some degree, not everyone, because a lot of people didn't agree with the decision, but he convinced the men that needed to be convinced.
Yeah.
To make that decision. And
wasn't that going into an election year, which certainly plays a role?
Exactly, right.
Timing was great on that.
Right. And
that's when McKinley won, right?
Yeah. He also, like I mentioned, he created these pamphlets. He created 15,000 pamphlets that he sent out when he went to these chambers of commerce, and it was like 14 pages, but it was basically a Cliff Note version of what the Panama Canal is. He had pictures of the construction that had been completed, and then he had facts and figures about about it. So, and he paid for all that on his own money. It wasn't Panama wasn't.
No, he was driven to do this one way or the
Yeah,
other.
and I don't think Panama really had any say in what the Colombians were going to approve. And I think we talked about it last time. Panama was going to, or Colombia was going to get like a one-time payment and then an annuity, and that money was probably just going to go to Bogota, not going to come to Panama City.
Right. Right. Yeah.
So there's
No
nothing
reason
really
for
in
not
it
to.
for Panama other than just keeping the canal.
Right, and that's kind of what that last bullet point says. That missing piece was that Panama willingness, because they realized, hey, we got to make this move now. The time is right, and the Colombia's already, it's very shaky what's going on there. And up north, they're leaning towards Nicaragua. So let's make our move now and guarantee these people something. I mean, timing was, it really was a series of coincidences, and man, I mean, just a little bit one way or the other, and it's not here, man. Not here at all. That's amazing.
So BV was a hero, a strategist, and an opportunist.
Yeah. All of the above, which is what was probably needed for it to work.
But he also left us a lot of information. He wrote several books. I mean, I talked about the Panama to Verdun last time, and I rely heavily on that one. But he also wrote this pamphlet in 1892 that he gave to like the emperor of Russia, and then he wrote a book in like 1914, and I can't remember the name of it. It's in French. Like history of the canal, like before and now type of thing.
Right.
And then I talked a little bit about this interview he did with the radio company in the late 30s, early 40s, 1940.
Right.
But he wrote a number of books that chronicle all that he went through to make this a reality, and his work was used a lot by the Americans. When you start looking at what they did, they picked up a lot of the techniques that he had started and then perfected them.
Sure.
But he he gave a roadmap, and I think you could probably be pretty confident that the U.S. used as much as they could.
Sure, that was the foundation for their plans.
Right, and then of course they scrapped the sea level canal idea pretty rapidly after that. But
if you think about it, Dave, you mentioned this guy's an engineer, right? He went to engineering school, a prestigious engineering school. So he, as much as he's a cheerleader of this project and wants it to go, and he's talking to the money people and saying the right things to them, all of this is based on him having that engineering background and understanding this is feasible and this can be done and this is a way to do it and this is what you can get out of this. So, I mean, we think of an engineer as not somebody that would be involved in a sale of this monumentous size, but truth is, I think you needed somebody to understand what a canal endeavor was to be able to sell it properly.
Yes, the size of that project, right? That's absolutely right. Who else would know that? Grand,
exactly.
Yeah.
Sorry, my battery's going. But
no, that's all right.
The other thing that I read was that one of the members of the Isthmian Canal Commission had said that Buenaventura was such a champion,
right,
that they were going to name a 400-acre island in Lake Bohio after him. So I'm imagining that was Barro Colorado Island, and Lake Bohio is Gatun Lake, but it's in that area. It's in like the Bohio stretch.
Interesting.
So I haven't confirmed, that that's the island and stuff, but it's written that was said about Buenaventura by the member of this committee was that he was so instrumental in making this happen that they were going to respect him that way. Of course, that never happened, but
he certainly was, man, and that's what's really amazing about this is that He was for somebody that wasn't even there at the beginning, right? I mean, he
Mhm.
missed the whole first part of
Yeah.
that
Well,
epic failure, and
he
yet he championed it. You know,
he was there in the beginning in that he was a boy, and that's what his life's ambition was to do, was to work on the Panama Canal.
that's true though. You're right because the Suez Canal now had brought all that fame
Yeah,
to France, and he
yeah.
wanted some of that. And the next big canal is Panama.
The Suez Canal got him interested in it, and then the Panama Canal. That was what he was destined to go. And his professor at the school, when he told him he was going to resign and go to Panama, he's like, "Why do you want this desh with people? Half the people that
Yeah,
go there
right.
die."
No
And he
kidding.
was like, "The confident don't die, only the weak-minded die."
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
And he actually contracted yellow fever right before he left. He didn't die of it. I think we've talked about where
Wow.
about a third died, a third
Sure.
got sick and recovered, and a third never got it. But
So now, and so we can go ahead and wrap this up. Interesting things on the screen there because this is the first time that I ever heard about that Russian involvement. Right? We'd heard the German involvement, we'd heard obviously the French involvement certainly, but you know, Russia at that time, Russia. You think about Russia in the late 1800s, early 1900s was a country in a lot of turmoil. They had
yep,
that czar ruling things there. Outside of the ruling class, Russia was a very impoverished country, but it was a very large country. Even back
mhm,
then, Russia was a big country, and so they had ambitions. And it just was interesting that I never realized that,
mhm.
that in itself may have been the catalyst because again, Russia was a power, right? Russia was a power recognized even early on. Napoleon
Yeah,
and the French went after these
yeah,
guys, man.
well, yeah. And the French, the Germans, the English, they were all after each other.
Yeah, absolutely.
They were all trying to outdo each other,
They were.
and
They would run out of territory in Africa. Asia was pretty much already completed, and this was the one region left. And it really was the one prize that would surpass all the other prizes. If you
yeah,
get
and
that
it.
territory
Yeah.
of Panama, you're golden.
And I think to some degree the French president and then the Russian emperor were thinking, "Hey, this will make us relevant again. That
Yeah,
everything in the Western Hemisphere will have to go through us."
yeah.
Yeah, guys, I
No,
found that Russian prince's name. I might pronounce it wrong, but I'll spell it in a minute.
Yeah,
Tatishev.
Tatashev. Yeah,
yes,
something
Tatashev.
like that.
yes. Okay,
That's
right
it.
on.
Tatishev.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's interesting there. Okay, so then now the next thing here. What are our thoughts on Bunavaria? Is he a hero? Is he
There
an
you go.
opportunist? Or is he a strategist?
I'm going with all three.
Oh yeah, or D, all of the above, right?
Or all the above,
I
for
I think
sure.
he's someone that we should talk about more.
Yeah, I
It's
think so.
surprising that he's not a bigger hero in Panama than I believe he should be.
Well, I mean, except for giving away your sovereignty, I mean,
Yeah.
I
It's
guess so.
funny that,
Yeah.
that they look at that and say that his move there, we didn't like it, but at the end of the day, his move gave them a country.
yeah.
They just don't like
That's
the way
my
he went
opinion.
about
Yeah.
it.
Well,
But
yeah, and then I think if you start looking at the history, it wasn't that long afterwards where they were voicing their opposition to that treaty language. It wasn't
true.
just didn't happen in the '60s.
Yeah, no, you're right. You're right.
They
They got a country, but they think they could have gotten a better deal.
Well, guys, at the end of the day, 100 guys voted on it. 98 said yes.
Right.
2 said no.
That's true. Very
Mhm.
true. Very true. Very true.
Yeah.
So now, did CZ schools teach that Galena incident? Negative.
No.
Negative.
I never heard of it till
Never heard of that.
Yeah.
But it's right that that's something that we got to understand when you learn about history, and this is why history is important to learn. The Monroe Doctrine is something that has been paramount in the United States and Latin America since way back when, and it wasn't that long after the Monroe Doctrine was first put out there that this stuff transpired in Panama. So it really was something that could be referenced and be relatable, where a lot of people would say, well, you know what, that makes sense, right? And
Yeah.
why invest in Nicaragua when we're going to be forced to work with these people down here anyway, and we already have that precedent to do it. You've got a railroad
Yeah.
there, which is the most important company in the
Yeah.
world at one point.
Well, when you look at it too, Buenaventura, he had no involvement with Panama until the week before the revolution. Really, I mean,
Yeah.
it wasn't like he was he was living in Panama, and they sent him to the U.S.
Sure.
because they were hanging out with each other, and they knew.
Because, like you said, he was going back and forth between Paris and New York.
Yeah, and he doesn't write about having, I'm sure he probably had, some Panamanian friends that he made when he was living there, and probably corresponded with them and saw them from time to time, but he doesn't mention anything about it. He talks about he knew the Colombian military folks
Right.
and stuff like that, and he corresponded with them, but he doesn't talk about being in cahoots with anyone at Panama. He basically hears about it from other people, and he basically says, "I think I can help,"
Well, it's
or
funny you
I
mentioned
think they
that,
can help me. I mean, I guess it's
but it makes sense. I mean, we view it with our our historical lenses that says this is Panama, this is the Panama Canal.
yeah.
But people in 1885 and 1903, heck, maybe even 1904 a little bit, are still viewing that as part of Colombia. So the mindset of not dealing with Panamanians, well, there isn't any such thing as a Panamanian in that sense. It is
No,
still
they were a junta revolucionaria. So that's
understood. But what I'm saying is the
probably had
mindset
heard-
was that this was part of Colombia still.
Yeah,
right?
he
And
probably for 10 years had heard that these guys are the rebels,
Right.
The
Exactly.
troublemakers, etc.
And so I think he just stick with focusing with the Colombian government, and something's going to happen. It's going to be with them. And then when you realize shit ain't going to happen, and these guys are getting a little more popular over here, and they're getting a little rowdy.
Well,
you jump on
Benjamin
that shit.
Herrera, Belisario Porras, and Victoriano Lorenzo whooped some butt and made everybody realize that they were not strong enough to put down this.
But-
It's funny, like HB
but-
says, that every story needs a villain, but this guy really was a hero. He
He
was.
But
was-
if-
I think he was.
if the U.S. had pulled out of Panama and built the Nicaraguan Canal and closed up the railroad and stuff, do you think there would be other rebellions? The U.S. would just say the Bidlack
Not our
Treaty
problem.
is not our
They
problem
would have
anymore.
had to
Not our
protect
problem.
because of precedents. They would have had to protect that railroad.
I'm
But they
saying
were
that-
going to close the railroad.
Yeah, if the canal's built
Oh,
in
if they
Nicaragua,
moved
the
over to
railroad
Nicaragua,
gone.
you're right
Yes.
about that. You're right about that. So they
It's
would have
just
had
a
no
rebel
reason to
province
stay
of
there.
Colombia's. Yeah, that's a great
They would have
point.
said, we don't need transit across the isthmus anymore. We've got our other isthmus.
Heck no,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Hey guys, I did a little research on who Team Panama was at that time. And basically it was like this. La Junta Revolucionaria, which I already mentioned, all the Panamanian names that we know, Arias, Arango, De La Guardia, etc. The railroad was also part of Team Panama.
Yeah.
General Huertas was definitely part of Team Panama. Governor
All right.
Ovaldia was also Team Panama. And a large civic network known as the Liberal Civic Network, which included that military force as well as civic elite component, which
A lot of the
controlled
merchants.
Well,
The
that would explain
merchants.
why they call that part of the French Plaza Huertas Way.
Yeah.
If he was a team leader.
because he was a general that sided with Panama.
Yeah.
And so the civic elites, they control politics, law, journalism, and this is how my family helped in the separation.
Hmm.
Because my great grandfather, big liberal,
Yeah.
and he was involved with a lot of funding and supporting the liberal movements, providing political cover, intelligence, and local influence. All this is from ChatGPT, by the way. Thanks a lot, Willie, for turning me on to that.
Yeah, that was a lot of fun. It's there's a new feature on the Chat GPT that allows you to do some group collaborating, and we've been actually working on that for this presentation.
Yeah, I got to find out exactly what my great grandfather was up to.
It's interesting, It's always you take it with a
Yeah.
grain of salt, right? Because it's still you're researching what's out there available on the internet, so it may not always be correct, but it is a fascinating tool and certainly makes things a lot more productive. But
Well, you will find a lot of information if you know how to use it.
yeah,
There's too much information. It really.
Yeah, it's overwhelming. The trick is
Yeah.
how to talk to it, and you got to know. For
Yeah.
example, one of the things, guys, and we're not going to get into an AI tech show here, but it's how you ask the question, right? Oftentimes, if you want to really get some really good research on something out of ChatGPT, make it that expert before it starts. Tell it, say, you're going to be a historian on Panama. You know about this and that. Now, tell me the following. Because now it starts using that context to do its research, and you get a lot more effective of responses. But hey, that's for another day. That's for the
Great
Tech
story,
Channel.
man.
It's
Shit, this was
a
the
really
best
fascinating story for sure.
I would say the best of the year. Even though
I think
Dave's
so.
stories are all dynamite, but this one was.
Well,
You made me do this without any notes, though. That's the thing.
We did. We kind of switched gears on this a
Well,
little
it's
bit.
because we're doing a new format, by the way.
Yeah.
But I'll tell you what. That being
I
said,
liked it.
you know, Dave, you did a great job because at one
also,
point I'm
Dave,
like,
yeah.
okay, are we on the right slide here? And you know what? All of a sudden, oh yeah, that's exactly where we wanted to be. So,
I couldn't see any slides.
Yeah,
I tried once or twice, but I couldn't do both.
No, it's all good, man. But it was, you know, again, the information is fascinating, and this is one that Ricky and I have been talking about for a while. Is what was going on behind the scenes, because the story has always been that Panama wanted independence, United States wanted a canal, Colombia said, "Oh, never mind." United States said, "Okay, Panama, let's go." But dude, that was in a move way before that.
So many things happening, and it all just came together, man. I mean,
and you know, one of Maria's, talking to McKinley because McKinley was assassinated, and that's how TR became president.
Yep.
So he was working with that. But I find really fascinating that John Hay was President Lincoln's personal secretary.
Way back then.
It's like, holy cow, man. I mean, what? That's just to me. That's just kind of interesting. You never hear about like these. He's Secretary of State, but you don't. You hear the name, but you don't really know who these people
you don't
are or what
associate
they
it with
did.
this movement here.
Exactly.
But I mean, those are and two different eras in presidents and governments and countries for that matter.
There's even one of the players in the like New York scene is the man that owned Baldwin Piano Company. I can't remember his last name because I don't have my notes. But how many people do you know have Baldwin pianos? Did you know that there was a Panama Canal Zone linkage there?
Go figure. Isn't that amazing? It's everywhere, man. The zone is it's just that's again the special thing about the canal zone and being a Zonian is it is so much influence. Go ahead, Ricky. Go ahead, hit that button, man. Ricky and I are clicking each other away here. We're canceling each other out. But no, listen, Dave.
I know hi to Pat because I was saying hi to Pat all night. Hey, Pat.
Hey, Pat. Go Pack.
Go Pat. There you go. Listen, hey, he made the trip up there.
I know. I saw that.
Ago, man.
Yeah.
Cool, man. We got to have him on to talk about that one day, man. They've got that Vikings, whatever you want to call it, the Vikings mobile, I guess it is, but it's really cool, man. Pat is quite the Minnesota Vikings fan. I know Lee Solin has always been a Vikings fan, but Pat is a Vikings fan.
I know. I have a cousin too
man.
that's a big Vikings fan. I don't know where that came from, but yeah.
That's funny. One of those teams that has always been one of the original, those NFL pedigree teams, back in the 70s that
Frank Tarkenton.
Man, that whole experience of going out there and being in that super cold and
yes.
My first NFL game was watching the Minnesota Vikings up. They were in Bloomington, Minnesota at that time. No dome, cold as crap. But Frank Tarkenton was quarterbacking.
Right. So
and
now
they had
what's the most famous Vikings play in history?
Marshall?
Yes, it has to be Jim Marshall going the wrong way.
Mm-hmm.
Picked up the ball and he ran. And it's funny because he's playing against the 49ers and there's a 49er playing running next to him. He thinks like he's outrunning the guy. He's running, man. And he gets to the end zone. He throws the ball away. They realize, man, you ran the wrong way, dude. He ran like 60 yards, man. And ended up being a safety for the other team or something, I think it was. But yeah, that's pretty funny. Very, very funny stuff there. So anyway, listen, Dave. Thanks again. I know that there was a lot of moving parts into this one, especially putting it together the last couple of days. But as usual, man, you're a champ. The information you throw at us is just spot on.
Tonight was the best. Thank you so much.
I'm looking forward to the next ones. One of the things that we'll do with this new format is ask it to print us out some show notes and stuff, and we can just print those and have them, and that way we can reference stuff a little bit quicker and easier. But otherwise, I love this way we set this up. A lot of cool information there, and certainly some visuals to accompany it, which always helps. So, Dave, again, thank you so much for doing this. Looking forward to January, some new information and all the
January 2nd, actually,
Canal's own history.
I won't be able to talk about it this month, but just remember December, just cause.
Yes. Yep, Just Cause is right around the corner. It's a couple of weeks from now is that anniversary.
And the giving and the turning the canal over. Yeah, these are sad months. Then after that, January 9th. So yeah, we've got some.
This is a period of some, well, you consider, I guess, some
Solemn.
Zonian turmoil is what you could call it, right? But hey, it's part of life. It's part of history. You know, we celebrated some amazing things in our life, and there was some other parts that, you know, maybe not so amazing, but still part of our life. But we all have a great opportunity to share that with future generations. And Dave, your show certainly is one that I'm looking forward to hearing somebody, you know, maybe one of my grandkids referencing some of the information they get from our show
Tonight's show
to do a history project or something, you know. So thank you again, Dave, for doing this and always taking the time every month to keep us informed on that Zonian history. Have yourself a very Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year, and we will talk to you in January.
All right. Thanks, Mark Cicero, for a great video.
Yes.
All right.
Awesome song. All right, Dave. Well, take care, man.
All right. Later.
We'll see you.
Right on, man.
All right.
Great,
that was cool,
great
man.
show. 2 hours, 10 minutes.
A lot of fun, man. But listen, very, very. That had a really good story. It was intriguing. It had a lot of that Russian piece. I don't. That's the first I think I've ever heard that Russians were.
Yeah, no, that's the first time we've heard of that.
Yeah, that was really, really cool. Again, a lot of great knowledge we get out of that Canal Zone history that Dave always puts so much effort into giving us. So looking forward to next year. But next week, don't forget, Steve Tochterman is going to join us. Him along with Jesus. These guys, remember, they wrote that
Air Force. What was he? Air Force Special Agent or something like that.
Tochterman was with the FAA. He was a special agent with the FAA.
No, but the other guy.
Yes, he was in Air Force Intelligence, I believe.
Yeah, Air Force Intelligence. Yeah.
Jesus, I'm drawing a blank on his last name. I apologize. Embarrassing. I'm the worst with names, guys. Just don't get offended.
It's okay. You get a pass.
But anyhow,
you get a pass.
But it's going to be a lot of fun. It's obviously very newsworthy right now with everything going on in Venezuela, all that stuff. So getting some really cool insight on that. In 2 weeks, fingers crossed, we're looking at some scheduling things, so we might be able to get HB on to do some Canal Zone dictionary, and then we're hoping for a end of the year recap show in December 26th. But anyhow, Shiva just went by, Ricky, so that's your cue to say to get us out of here, man.
Thank you guys from the bottom of our heart. We love you. We appreciate you. And we'll see you next week at the same time, same place.
Cheers.
Thank you
Salud,
very
everybody.
much.